Hey everyone, hope you're doing great. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we'll dive into what if Deku gained the skills of Mulan, Disney version, after meeting a Chinese dragon, the dragon that travels with Mulan in the Disney cartoon film. Smash that subscribe button, and be sure to peek at the description below. Let's begin. The taste of sewage was a sensation that Izuku Midoriya knew would haunt him for the rest of his life. It was a thick, oily film that coated his tongue, the back of his throat, and seemingly the very inside of his lungs. But as he sat on the asphalt of the shopping district, surrounded by the flashing red and blue lights of police cruisers and the murmuring of a stunned crowd, the physical taste was nothing compared to the bitterness of reality. He was alive. He was safe. But he was hollow. You were reckless. You could have gotten yourself killed, and you interfered with the pros. The scolding came from Death Arms. The hero's massive, crossed arms were imposing, his voice booming with the authority of someone who had a quirk and knew how to use it. Kamui Wood stood nearby, nodding in agreement, though his expression was pitying. There was absolutely no need for you to put yourself in danger, Death Arms continued, his finger wagging in Izuku's face. You have no quirk. You are a civilian. Leave the fighting to us. A few meters away, Katsuki Bakugo was being swarmed by reporters and paramedics. He was being praised. Amazing bravery. Such a powerful quirk. You held out for so long. Izuku pulled his knees to his chest, his scorched middle school uniform smelling of smoke and slime. He had moved without thinking. He had seen fear in Kaken's eyes and his legs had just moved. But in the end, he hadn't done anything. He had thrown a backpack. He had clawed uselessly at a fluid body. If All Might hadn't shown up, if the symbol of peace hadn't punched the weather itself into submission, they both would be dead. I'm sorry, Izuku whispered, bowing his head until his forehead scraped the pavement. I'm sorry. Eventually, the crowd dispersed. The heroes packed up. The sun began its final descent, casting long, bruised shadows across Muzurifu. Izuku picked himself up, his yellow backpack heavy with the weight of his burned notebooks. He didn't look at Bakugo. He didn't look at anyone. He just turned and walked. He didn't go straight home. He couldn't face his mother yet. Inko Midoriya would be frantic if she saw the news, and seeing him smelling like a sewer would only make her cry. And if she cried, he would cry, and he was tired of crying. You can't be a hero without a quirk. The words of the doctor from 10 years ago mixed with the unspoken rejection of All Might. The number one hero hadn't said it explicitly. He had been swarmed by fans before he could really speak to Izuku after the rescue, but the look in his eyes had been enough. It was the same look everyone gave him, pity. Izuku found himself wandering toward the outskirts of the residential district, away from the bustling main streets. His feet carried him on autopilot, taking a shortcut he hadn't used since he was a small child. It was a narrow, dirt path that cut behind the old hillside overlooking the city. The trees here were older, their roots gnarled and breaking through the concrete retainers. The noise of the city faded, replaced by the chirping of cicadas and the rustle of wind through bamboo. As he walked, kicking a pebble with his red sneaker, Izuku spotted something he had forgotten existed. Hidden behind a veil of overgrown wisteria and ivy was a stone torii gate. But it wasn't the vibrant vermilion of the well-maintained shrines in the city. The paint had peeled away decades ago, leaving gray, weathered wood. The kanji etched into the stone pillar was archaic, barely legible under the moss. F.A. Family Shrine. Izuku paused. He remembered his mother talking about this place once, years ago. She had said her great-grandmother had come from China, marrying into a Japanese family and bringing her strange old customs with her. Inko had dismissed it as superstition, favoring the modern comforts of urban life, but she had always told Izuku to be respectful if he ever passed by. I guess I'm an outcast too, Izuku thought morbidly. Just like this place. Drawn by a strange gravity, Izuku pushed through the overgrowth. The air instantly grew cooler. The sounds of the modern world, cars, sirens, the distant hum of electricity, seemed to vanish, swallowed by the density of the trees. The shrine itself was small, a modest wooden structure with a curved, tiled roof that swept upward at the corners in a distinctively non-Japanese style. It looked like a miniature pagoda. Stone lanterns lined the path, though most were toppled over or broken. In the center of the small courtyard sat a stone pedestal. And upon that pedestal was a statue. It was a dragon. But not the terrifying, muscular dragons like the pro-hero Ryukyu. This was serpentine, elegant, winding around itself. It looked cheeky. Even in stone, the dragon seemed to be grinning. Beside it was a small, stone incense burner filled with decades of dust and dead leaves. Izuku dropped his backpack at the base of the pedestal and collapsed onto the stone steps of the shrine. The exhaustion finally hit him. His legs shook, and the adrenaline crash left him shivering. "What am I doing?" he asked the silence. He pulled out his burned notebook, Hero Analysis for the Future, number 13. The cover was charred, courtesy of Bakugo's explosion earlier that day. He flipped it open. The pages were damp and crinkled. Pro-hero, Kamui Woods. Quirk Arbor. Weakness, Fire. Izuku read his own handwriting, the ink running. Pro-hero, Empty Lady. Quirk, Gigantification. He slammed the book shut. Deku, he spat the name out. Defenseless Izuku. Quirkless. He looked up at the stone dragon. The statue stared back, unblinking. "Is it wrong?" Izuku asked the statue, his voice cracking. "Is it wrong to want to help people? Everyone says I have to be realistic. They say all men are not created equal. I know that better than anyone." Tears began to prick at his eyes again, hot and stinging. "But my body moved on its own," he sobbed, clutching his chest. "I just wanted to save him. I want to be a hero." "Is that so bad?" He stood up, wiping his eyes aggressively with his sleeve, smearing soot across his face. He felt a sudden, desperate need to do something. He couldn't just sit here. He felt a strange compulsion, an urge to pay respects, perhaps hoping that some ancestor, somewhere, was listening. Mom said to light incense for good luck," Izuku muttered. He rummaged through his pockets. He didn't have incense. He had a half-empty pack of tissues, his wallet, and a single, small sparkler left over from a summer festival packet he'd found in his desk earlier that week. He had meant to throw it away. "It's not incense," Izuku sniffled. "But it's light." He placed the sparkler into the dirt of the stone burner. He fumbled for the lighter he carried, not for smoking, but for cauterizing loose threads on his hero costumes, a tip he'd read on a forum. Flick. The flame caught. The sparkler hissed, spitting out tiny stars of gold and silver light. The chemical smell of magnesium filled the air, sharp and distinct. Izuku clasped his hands together, closed his eyes, and bowed his head. "Please," he whispered, pouring every ounce of his broken heart into the prayer. "I don't need to be the strongest. I don't need to be famous. I just want the power to protect people. Please, give me a chance." He stood there for a long moment, the sparkler hissing down to the wire. Crack! A sound like a splitting rock echoed through the clearing. Izuku's eyes snapped open. The stone dragon statue on the pedestal was vibrating. Earthquake?" Izuku stammered, stepping back. The vibration intensified. Dust shook loose from the roof of the shrine. The sparkler flared up violently, turning from gold to an eerie, mystical blue. The smoke didn't dissipate. Instead, it swirled, thickening, pooling around the base of the pedestal like a fog machine gone wrong. Kaboom! The pedestal exploded. Izuku shrieked, throwing his arms up to shield his face as debris rained down. He scrambled backward, tripping over his own feet and landing hard on his backside. "I live!" The voice was loud, boisterous, and echoed as if coming from a stadium speaker. Through the swirling blue smoke, a gigantic shadow loomed against the setting sun. It was the silhouette of a massive dragon, horns curving to the sky, eyes glowing with fiery intensity. "So, tell me what mortal needs my protection, great ancestor?" the voice bellowed. "You just say the word and I'm there." Izuku stared, his mouth agape, his heart hammering against his ribs like a jackhammer. "A villain? No, a hero? A spirit? Is this a quirk manifesting? Did I trigger a dormant trap? Izuku stuttered, paralyzed with fear. "And let me say something," the voice continued, ignoring Izuku's terror. "Anybody who is foolish enough to threaten our family, vengeance will be mine." The smoke began to clear. "I am the guardian of lost souls." The powerful. The pleasurable. The indestructible. The giant shadow began to shrink. Rapidly. Wait a minute. The smoke vanished completely. Standing on the remains of the stone pedestal was not a giant leviathan. It was a lizard. A red, spindly lizard about the size of a cat, standing on its hind legs. It had yellow horns, a yellow underbelly, and large, expressive eyes. It blinked. Izuku blinked. The lizard looked around, confused. It looked at its own hands, claws. It looked at the massive shadow cast on the rock behind it, created by the last embers of the sparkler, then realized the effect was gone. The lizard cleared its throat. I am Mushu. Silence stretched between them, heavy and awkward. Izuku, his brain finally catching up with his eyes, slowly raised a trembling hand. A lizard? Mushu's ears, did lizards have ears, drooped. His expression shifted from majestic to annoyed in a nanosecond. Dragon? Dragon, not lizard. I don't do that tongue thing, he demonstrated by flicking his tongue out quickly. See? No thwip thwip. Izuku scrambled backward until his back hit a tree. Why you can talk? Is this your quirk? Are you a mutation type? Or a heteromorph? Mushu hopped down from the pedestal, landing with a surprising amount of grace. He dusted off his knees. Quirk? What is a quirk? Is that some new kind of dumpling? Because I'm starving. I've been stoned for. How long? What year is it? It's the Heisei era. No, wait, Reiwa. Izuku stammered, his mind reeling. Are you a hero? Mushu strutted forward, chest puffed out. Hero? Honey, I am a guardian. I was sent by the ancestors to guide the great stone Diare. Wait. Mushu stopped. He looked around the dilapidated shrine. He looked at the broken statues. He looked at Izuku. He really looked at Izuku. He saw the scorched uniform. The tear tracks through the soot on his face. The skinny arms. The trembling knees. The yellow backpack that looked like it belonged to a kindergartner. Mushu deflated. Oh, you gotta be kidding me. He turned around, looking at the empty air. Hey! Ancestors! You hear me up there? I asked for a warrior. You know, muscles, sword, grim determination? This is a beanpole. A weeping willow. Look at him. He's shaking like a leaf in a typhoon. I am sorry. Izuku apologized instinctively, bowing his head. Stop apologizing. Mushu snapped, marching over to Izuku and poking his shin with a claw. Stand up. Let me look at you. Terrified of the talking reptile, Izuku scrambled to his feet, wiping his nose. I'm Izuku Midoriya. Midoriya? Mushu frowned, tapping his chin. That doesn't sound like F.A. But... He sniffed Izuku. He took a deep, loud sniff near Izuku's armpit. Hey. Izuku squeaked. Soy sauce, burnt fabric, and... Mushu's eyes widened. Aha! Tofu. And beneath that, yes, definitely F.A. blood. Diluted, sure, mixed with some islander stock? But it's there. Mushu climbed up Izuku's leg, ignoring the boy's yelp of surprise, and perched himself on Izuku's shoulder. Okay, kid. Here's the deal. I'm Mushu. I'm a dragon. I'm your guardian. Now, where is the war? Where are the Huns? Who are we fighting? Izuku stood frozen, feeling the small, warm weight of the dragon on his shoulder. This was surreal. Even in a world where people could grow engines from their legs, this felt ancient. There are no Huns, Izuku said softly. And I'm not a soldier. Mushu blinked. No Huns? Then why did you summon me? The great gong rang. Well, actually it was more like a fizzle pop, but the intent was there. You prayed for power, didn't you? Izuku looked down at his hands. I did. But I can't fight. I'm quirkless. Quirkless, Mushu tested the word. You keep saying that. Does that mean you're missing a toe? A lung? No, Izuku sighed, the heaviness returning to his chest. In this world, 80% of the population has a supernatural power. A quirk. Fire breathing, super strength, telekinesis. I have nothing. I'm just normal. And because I'm normal, I'm useless. Mushu stared at the boy. He saw the genuine pain in his eyes. It was a look he recognized. He had seen it on a girl, hundreds of years ago, when she looked at her reflection in the water, wiping away matchmaker makeup. The look of someone who desperately wanted to bring honor to their family, but was told by the world that they were wrong just for existing. Mushu hopped off Izuku's shoulder and landed on a nearby flat stone. He crossed his arms. So, Mushu said, his voice dropping the theatrics. Everyone else has magic tricks, and you don't. And they tell you you're nothing? Basically, Izuku whispered. And you believe them? Izuku flinched. It's the truth. Even All Might, the greatest hero, he couldn't help me. All Might? Sounds like a detergent, Mushu scoffed. He paced back and forth on the rock. Okay, let me get this straight. You summoned me, Mushu, the dragon of the West. Because you want to prove them wrong. You want to be a hero, which I assume is modern talk for general or warlord. Just a protector, Izuku corrected. Someone who saves people with a smile. Mushu stopped pacing. He looked at the scrawny boy. This was a disaster. This kid had zero muscle mass. His posture was terrible. He cried more than a monsoon season. But, Mushu glanced at a small cage sitting in the grass near the pedestal. Inside, a purple cricket was rubbing its legs together, chirping frantically. Yeah, Criki, I hear you, Mushu muttered to the cricket. He's pathetic. But, Mushu thought about his own predicament. He was currently on probation with the ancestors. Actually, probation was generous. He had been demoted to incense burner duty. If he returned now, reporting that he woke up for a crying teenager with no war to fight, he'd be demoted to doorstop. But if he could turn this mess, this trembling, snot-nosed, green-haired beanpole, into the greatest hero of this era, imagine the pedestal size. Imagine the offerings. Mushu grinned. A wide, toothy, dragon grin. Okay, Izuku Midoriya, Mushu declared, clapping his claws together. You're in luck. You didn't get a quirk. You got something better. You got me. Izuku blinked, wiping his eyes. You. But you're tiny? Portable? Travel size for your convenience? Mushu snapped. Don't let the size fool you. I possess the wisdom of the ages. I trained the woman who saved China, and let me tell you, she started out worse than you. Well, maybe not worse, she could at least hold a sword without dropping it on her foot, but you get the point. Mushu jumped back onto Izuku's shoulder. Pick up the cricket. That's Criki. He's lucky. You're gonna need it. Izuku hesitated, then bent down and picked up the small bamboo cage. The cricket inside chirped happily. So, Izuku said, feeling a strange glimmer of hope sparking in his chest, brighter than the sparkler had been. You can help me? You can make me a hero? Make you? Mushu laughed. Kid, I'm gonna forge you. I'm gonna turn you into a lean, mean fighting machine. But first, Mushu grabbed a lock of Izuku's unruly green hair. We gotta do something about this hair. It looks like a broccoli explosion. Hey! Izuku swatted his hand away, a small smile finally breaking through the gloom. Alright, let's go, Mushu commanded, pointing toward the path back to the city. Take me to your base of operations. I need food. Offerings. Rice porridge. Bacon. Do you have bacon in the future? We have bacon, Izuku said, adjusting his backpack straps. Good. Dishonor on you if you burn it, Mushu warned. As they walked out of the shrine, leaving the ancient world behind and stepping back toward the lights of Muzurifu, Izuku felt different. He was still quirkless. He was still tired, but the crushing weight of loneliness had lifted, replaced by the chattering weight of a small red dragon who wouldn't shut up. The walk home was an interrogation. Mushu asked about everything. What is that metal beast? That's a bus, Mushu. Why is it screaming? It's honking. And that box in your hand? My phone. Does it have a spirit inside? Kind of? It has Siri. By the time they reached the Midoriya apartment complex, Izuku was exhausted mentally, but his mind was racing with possibilities. He managed to sneak into the apartment without his mom seeing the dragon. Mushu hid in the hood of his Gakurin. I'm home, Izuku called out. Inko rushed out of the kitchen, tears already in her eyes. Izuku! I saw the news. The sludge villain. Are you hurt? Oh my goodness, your uniform. She hugged him tightly, fussing over the soot stains. Izuku hugged her back, feeling guilty. I'm okay, Mom. Really? The heroes saved me. Mushu, peeking out from the hood, whispered, she's a warrior. Good lung capacity, though. I like her. I'm just going to take a shower and change, Izuku said, pulling away gently. I'm really tired. Of course. I'll make katsudon, Inko said, wiping her eyes. Katsudon. Mushu whispered loudly. Is that pork? I love pork. Izuku hurried to his room and shut the door, locking it. He flopped onto his bed, letting Mushu and Shigaraki out onto his desk. Mushu looked around the room. It was a shrine in its own right, a shrine to All Might. Posters, figures, bedsheets. Whoa, Mushu said, picking up an All Might action figure. Who is this blonde giant? Why is he smiling like he's constipated? That's All Might, Izuku said, sitting at his desk. The symbol of peace. The greatest hero. He looks ridiculous, Mushu judged, tossing the figure aside. He began walking across the desk, inspecting Izuku's things. He stopped at the stack of notebooks. What are these? Mushu asked. My hero analysis journals, Izuku explained, feeling a flush of embarrassment. I write down everything about heroes and villains. Their fighting styles, their weaknesses, their special moves. I thought if I studied enough, I could figure out a way to be like them. Mushu opened the charred notebook, number 13. He flipped through the pages. He saw the intricate drawings, the dense paragraphs of text, the mathematical calculations of force and trajectory. He stopped at a page detailing Kamui-Wood's preemptive bind technique. Mushu read it. Then he looked at Izuku. Then he read it again. You wrote all this? Mushu asked, his voice losing its mocking edge. Yeah, Izuku rubbed the back of his neck. It's nerdy, I know. Kaken blew it up because he said it was creepy. Mushu looked at the boy. The kid had no muscles. No magic powers. But this was strategy. This was intellect. Mulan had been smart. She had used a cannon to cause an avalanche. She had used a fan to disarm a leader. But this kid was dissecting the physics of warfare for fun. Kid, Mushu said slowly. You're not a warrior. Not yet. I know, Izuku slumped. No, listen to me. Mushu hopped onto the open book. You're a tactician. A strategist. Mushu pointed a claw at a drawing of empty lady. You figured out she needs a 2-lane street minimum to transform effectively without causing collateral damage? Well, yeah, it's about displacement volume, Izuku muttered. And here, Mushu flipped the page. You noted that Backdraft's water pressure drops if he uses 3 hoses simultaneously? It's fluid dynamics. Mushu closed the book. He looked at Izuku with a newfound respect. The ancestors might have sent him a beanpole, but they had sent him a smart beanpole. Okay, Mushu said, pacing across the desk. We can work with this. We don't need to make you a brute. We need to make you slippery. Fast. Smart. He pointed a claw at Izuku's chest. But first, we have to address the elephant in the room. What elephant? Izuku looked around. Your confidence. Mushu yelled. It's non-existent. You apologize to the floor when you walk on it. You need swagger. You need spirit. Mushu jumped onto the windowsill, striking a pose. Starting tomorrow, we begin. Dawn. Before the sun. Or, whenever you wake up for school. We're going to that beach I saw on the way here. The one that looks like a garbage dump. Dagoba Beach? Izuku asked. It's filled with illegal dumping. Perfect. Mushu rubbed his hands together. Obstacles. Targets. Raw materials. We're gonna turn that trash heap into a dojo. Izuku looked at the small dragon. For the first time in his life, someone was looking at him not with pity, and not with disdain, but with expectation. Mushu, Izuku asked quietly. Do you really think I can do it? Without a quirk? Mushu looked at the All Might poster, then back at Izuku. Kid, Mushu said, his voice unusually soft. The greatest warrior I ever knew didn't have magic breath or super strength. She was just a girl who loved her father enough to risk her life. She used her head. She used her heart. Mushu hopped back down to the desk and patted Izuku's hand. You got the heart. I can see it. Now we just gotta build the rest of the package so you don't die in 5 seconds. Suddenly, Mushu's stomach growled loudly. Now, Mushu demanded, bring me this katsudan. And if it's cold? Dishonor! Dishonor on you! Dishonor on your cow! Izuku blinked. I don't have a cow, Mushu. Then dishonor on your hamster. Your fish. Whatever. Mushu waved his arms. Just feed the dragon. Izuku laughed. It was a genuine laugh, bubbling up from his chest, chasing away the taste of sludge and sorrow. Okay, Izuku smiled, standing up. I'll get the food. As he walked to the door, he looked back. Mushu was arguing with Shigaraki about who got the comfortable side of the pencil case. Izuku Midoriya was quirkless. But for the first time, he didn't feel powerless. He had a dragon. He had a plan. And he had 10 months until the UA entrance exam. Let's get down to business, Izuku whispered to himself, a spark of determination igniting in his green eyes. He opened the door. The sun had not yet risen over Muzurifu. The sky was a bruised purple, the stars fading into the coming dawn. In the Midoriya household, silence reigned, until a metallic clang shattered it like a dropped dinner plate. Izuku shot up in bed, a scream dying in his throat as he tangled himself in his all-might bedsheets. He fell off the mattress with a heavy thud, his heart hammering a frantic rhythm against his ribs. Rise and shine, sleeping beauty, Izuku groaned, rubbing his head as he untangled himself. Standing on his desk, silhouetted against the window, was Mushu. The small red dragon held a metal spoon in one claw and was using it to beat the side of an empty soda can like a war drum. Mushu, Izuku croaked, his voice thick with sleep. It's 4 in the morning. 4 in the morning is prime warrior time. Mushu retorted, hopping down from the desk and landing on Izuku's head. He tapped the boy's forehead with the spoon. Do you think the Huns sleep in? Do you think the villains hit the snooze button? No. They're out there plotting. Scheming. Probably doing cardio. Izuku blinked blearily. There are no Huns, Mushu. Details. Mushu waved a claw dismissively. Get dressed. Not the pajamas. Put on something you don't mind destroying. We're going to the beach. Izuku sighed, the reality of the previous evening washing over him. It hadn't been a fever dream. He really did have a miniature dragon guardian. He looked at the charred notebook on his desk, then at the All Might poster. The despair from the sludge villain incident was still there, a dull ache in his chest, but Mushu's manic energy was a strange, distracting bomb. Okay, Izuku whispered. Okay. He pulled on an old, oversized green tracksuit, one that had seen better days, and laced up his red sneakers. And don't forget breakfast. Mushu called out as Izuku tiptoed toward the door. I need protein. Eggs. Bacon. A cow if you have one. Shoo. Izuku hissed, pressing a finger to his lips. Mom is asleep. They managed to sneak into the kitchen. Izuku quickly scrambled 3 eggs and heated up some leftover rice. Mushu inhaled his portion in seconds, literally breathing a tiny puff of fire to reheat the rice to his liking. Shigaraki, the purple cricket, sat on the rim of a teacup, nibbling a single grain of rice with polite dignity. All right, Mushu burped, a small cloud of smoke escaping his nostrils. Fuel is in the tank. Let's move out. Dagoba Municipal Beach Park. The smell hit them before they even saw the sand. It was a cocktail of rotting seaweed, rusted metal, wet cardboard, and despair. Izuku stood at the top of the concrete stairs looking down at the beach. Or what used to be a beach. Now, it was a graveyard of human consumption. Mountains of trash, tires, refrigerators, broken cars, driftwood stretched as far as the eye could see, blocking the view of the ocean horizon. It's worse than I remember, Izuku muttered, pulling his tracksuit sleeve over his nose. People have been dumping here illegally for years. Mushu stood on the railing, looking out over the garbage heaps with a critical eye. He hummed, stroking his chin whiskers. Disgusting, Mushu noted. Absolutely revolting. The feng shui is a disaster. That pile of tires is blocking the chi of the ocean entirely. Maybe we should go to a gym, Izuku suggested. There's a municipal gym downtown. Gym? Mushu scoffed, turning to look at Izuku with incredulity. You think you're gonna become a warrior in air conditioning? You think Genghis Khan had a treadmill? No. Mushu gestured grandly to the trash heaps. This is your dojo. My dojo is a dump? Your dojo is a landscape of opportunity, Mushu corrected. He hopped off the railing and scurried down the stairs. Come on. Pick up the pace. We got 10 months to turn you from a wet noodle into a weapon of mass destruction. Izuku followed, his feet crunching on the debris-littered sand. The sheer scale of the mess was overwhelming. Okay, kid. Shirt off, Mushu commanded. What? Izuku blushed. Why? I need to see the canvas before I paint the masterpiece, Mushu said, tapping his foot. Let's see what we're working with. Reluctantly, Izuku peeled off his green tracksuit jacket and the white t-shirt underneath. He stood shivering in the cool morning air. He was skinny. Painfully so. His ribs were visible, his arms were thin, and his posture was hunched, as if he were constantly expecting a blow. Mushu walked around him, poking and prodding with a claw. Humph. Zero deltoid definition. Core is soft. Posture like a frightened shrimp. Mushu shook his head. And what is this? He poked Izuku's arm. My bicep? It feels like a water balloon. No tension. Mushu sighed, looking up at the sky. Ancestors, why do you test me? You send me a boy made of pudding. I know I'm weak, Izuku said, looking down at his feet, his hands balling into fists. That's why I need help. All Might is strong. He's huge. If I want to be like him, I need to bulk up. I need to lift all this trash, right? Clear the beach? He walked toward a rusted refrigerator, gripping the handle. He strained, his face turning red, veins popping in his neck. The fridge shifted maybe an inch. Stop! Stop before you pop a blood vessel! Mushu yelled. Izuku let go, panting heavily. I can do it. I just need to try harder. No, Mushu said, his voice cutting through the air. You're doing it wrong. You're trying to be the blonde giant. You are not the blonde giant. Mushu scurried up a pile of tires so he was eye level with Izuku. Listen to me, Izuku. That guy? All Might? He's a mountain. He's brute force. He smashes through walls. You. Mushu poked Izuku in the chest. You try to smash through a wall, you're gonna break every bone in your body. You don't have a quirk to protect you. Then what do I do? Izuku asked, desperation creeping into his voice. You don't smash the wall, Mushu said, grinning. You go over the wall. You go around the wall. You find the loose brick in the wall, and you poke it until the whole thing comes down. Mushu jumped down and picked up a long, rusted metal pipe from the sand. It was about 5 feet long, heavy and uneven. Catch! He tossed it. Izuku fumbled, barely catching it before it hit his toes. The weight dragged his arms down. This is your best friend now, Mushu declared. In the FA family, we don't just use fists. We use reach. We use leverage. We use speed. You want to be a hero? You gotta be swift as a coursing river. Swift as a river, Izuku repeated, with all the force of a great typhoon. Mushu added, throwing a punch at the air. Typhoon. Got it. And mysterious as the dark side of the moon. Mushu finished with a flourish. That doesn't rhyme with the first two, Izuku pointed out. It's poetry, kid. Don't critique the art. Mushu snapped. Now, hold the staff. Feet shoulder-width apart. Knees bent. Lower your center of gravity. Izuku adjusted his stance. The pipe felt heavy and awkward. Lower! Mushu barked. Izuku squatted lower. His thighs began to burn immediately. Good. Now hold it. Don't move. For how long? Until I finish my breakfast, Mushu said, pulling a cricket-sized rice ball out of nowhere. Month 1, the foundation. The first month was hell. There was no fighting. There were no cool moves. There was only pain. Mushu didn't have Izuku lifting heavy objects for bulk. Instead, he focused on functional strength, balance, Mushu screamed as Izuku tried to stand on one leg atop a wobbly pile of tires while holding 2 buckets of water. You're swaying like a drunk goose. Tighten your core. Izuku fell. The water soaked him. Again, they trained in the mornings before school and in the evenings after. Izuku's grades at school remained perfect. He studied during lunch, but his social life, which was already non-existent, somehow shrank even further. He was too tired to even mutter. At school, Bakugo noticed the change. Izuku wasn't following him around anymore. He wasn't flinching as much. He was just tired. And quiet. "Oh, Deku!" Bakugo cornered him by the lockers one afternoon. "You look like a zombie. Finally give up on Yue?" Izuku looked at Bakugo. Usually, he would stammer a denial. Today, he just adjusted his backpack strap. His forearms ached from holding the metal pipe for 3 hours that morning. "I'm just tired, Kaken," Izuku said softly. "Excuse me?" He walked past Bakugo. Bakugo stood there, small explosions popping in his palms, confused by the lack of fear. Back at the beach, Mushu introduced the dragon course. It was an obstacle course made of junk. A balance beam made of a rusted guardrail. A climbing wall made of stacked cars. A swing made of hanging tires. "Run it!" Mushu timed him with a stopwatch he'd found in the trash. After fixing it, Izuku ran. He tripped over a cable. He slammed his shin into a bumper. He fell face first into the sand. "Pathetic!" Mushu yelled through a megaphone he had also found. "My grandmother moves faster than that, and she's been a spirit for 200 years. Get up!" I can't," Izuku wheezed, lying in the sand. "My legs, they won't move." Mushu hopped down next to him. "You know why you're failing? You're thinking too much. I can hear your brain grinding from here. Oh, if I step here, the friction coefficient is... blah blah blah." "Shut up. Instinct, Izuku." "Flow. I've always analyzed things," Izuku gasped. "It's how I understand the world. Analysis is good for planning." Mushu tapped Izuku's temple. "But in battle? Analysis is hesitation. Hesitation is death. You need to clear your mind. Be empty." "Empty," Izuku muttered. "Empty." Mushu slapped him. "Now get up. We're doing the bucket carry again." Month 3 The staff. By the 3rd month, Izuku's body had begun to change. He wasn't bulky like a bodybuilder. He was wiry. The baby fat had melted away, revealing defined, corded muscle. His hands were calloused from the metal pipe. Mushu decided it was time to teach him how to actually use it. "The bow staff," Mushu lectured, pacing back and forth on top of a washing machine. "The weapon of the peacemaker. A sword cuts. A spear pierces. A staff? A staff controls." Izuku held the pipe. He had sanded off the rust and wrapped the center in grip tape. "Attack me," Mushu said. "What? You're tiny. I might hurt you," Izuku worried. "Hurt me?" Mushu laughed. "Kid, I'm a dragon. Come on. Hit me." Izuku swung the staff. It was a clumsy, horizontal swipe. Mushu didn't even jump. He just leaned back, the pipe passing inches from his nose. "Too slow. You're telegraphing." "I saw that swing last Tuesday." Izuku swung again, downward. Mushu sidestepped, hopped onto the staff, ran up the length of it, and flicked Izuku in the forehead. "Ow! Physics, Izuku!" Mushu shouted. "You have the reach advantage, but you're using it like a club. It's a lever. Use your hands as the fulcrum. Slide your grip. Shorten the range for speed, lengthen it for power." He spent weeks drilling the forms. Strike. Block. Parry. Sweep. Mushu was relentless about the Mushu style. "We are small," Mushu shouted as Izuku practiced spins. "So we must be annoying. We strike the ankles. We strike the wrists. We strike the solar plexus. We don't trade blows. We redirect them." One evening, as the sun set, turning the ocean a deep orange, Izuku finally entered the flow. He was practicing a kata Mushu had taught him. He stopped thinking about where his feet should go. He stopped thinking about All Might. He just moved. The staff spun, a blur of silver. He pivoted, struck an imaginary opponent, spun low to sweep, and vaulted over the pipe to land in a defensive crouch. He held the pose, breathing rhythmically. Not bad, Mushu said from his perch on a pile of newspapers. You looked less like a drunken giraffe and more like a slightly coordinated giraffe. Izuku smiled, sweat dripping down his nose. I'll take it. Month 5, the arrow. The turning point came at the halfway mark. It was a Saturday. The air was humid, heavy with impending rain. Izuku arrived at the beach to find Mushu standing at the base of a towering structure. It was a monolith of garbage. 3 refrigerators stacked on top of a crushed van, topped with a tangle of rebar and slick, oil-coated plastic sheets. It was at least 20 feet high and unstable. At the very top, stuck into a block of styrofoam, was a single arrow. It had a red ribbon tied to it. Retrieving the arrow, Mushu announced. A classic test. If you can get that arrow down, you pass to the next level. Okay, Izuku cracked his knuckles. I can climb that. Mushu wagged a finger. He reached behind a tire and pulled out 2 heavy canvas bags. They were filled with lead weights and sand. Wear these. He tossed them to Izuku. They were wrist weights. Heavy ones, and these. He tossed 2 more for his ankles. Izuku strapped them on. His limbs felt like lead. He could barely lift his arms. Begin! Mushu shouted. Izuku ran at the pile. He tried to jump for the first handhold, a protruding door handle. The weights dragged him down. He missed and slammed into the van door. Again, he tried to climb slowly. He got halfway up the van before his grip strength failed under the extra weight. He slid down, scraping his arms. Again, for hours, Izuku threw himself at the pile. The rain started to fall, making the plastic sheets slick. He slipped. He fell. He was covered in mud and grease. His muscles screamed in agony. Give up! Mushu shouted from under a small umbrella he was holding. Go home, Izuku. You can't do it. You're just a quirkless kid. Why bother? Just be a police officer. Be a salaryman. Izuku lay in the mud, staring up at the arrow. The rain matted his hair to his face. Why bother? He thought of Bakugo's explosions. He thought of the sludge villain. He thought of All Might telling him to be realistic. Because... Izuku gritted his teeth. Because there's nobody else. He stood up. He looked at the weights on his wrists. They were dragging him down. They were the burden of his weakness. Weight. Leverage. Mushu had said it 1,000 times. Use your disadvantage. Redirect the force. Izuku looked at the weights. They had long straps. He didn't try to lift them this time. He took the weights off his wrists. Giving up? Mushu asked, raising an eyebrow. Izuku didn't answer. He tied the straps of the weights together, linking them. He threw the weights over the high bar of the refrigerator handle above him. The weights swung over and looped around, creating a counterweight. He grabbed the straps. He pulled down. The weights went up, tightening the loop. He used the strap as a rope, hauling himself up with the aid of friction. He reached the top of the van. He did it again with the next set of weights, looping them around a piece of rebar. He used his own body weight as the anchor, swinging himself up like a pendulum. He wasn't climbing with strength. He was climbing with physics. He reached the slick plastic sheet. He couldn't get a grip. He used his staff, which he had strapped to his back, jamming it into a gap in the junk to create a step. He vaulted. He reached the top. His hand closed around the shaft of the arrow. Izuku stood on the summit of the trash heap, breathing hard, the arrow raised high in his hand. The rain stopped as if on cue, the clouds parting to let a single ray of sunlight hit him. Down below, Mushu dropped his umbrella. He actually did it, Mushu whispered. He wiped a tear from his eye. That's my boy. I taught him that. Well, I taught him the concept, he improvised the rest, but I'm taking credit. Izuku looked down, a fierce grin splitting his face. I got it, Mushu. Great. Mushu yelled back. Now get down here before that fridge tips over and kills you. Month 8, the mind game. Physical training was one thing. Mental training was another. You mutter, Mushu said one day while they were eating lunch on the clean section of the beach. They had cleared about 40% of it by now. What? Izuku looked up from his bento. You mutter. If the villain does X, I should do Y, but maybe Z. It's annoying. And it gives away your position. It's a habit, Izuku defended. It's a weakness, Mushu snapped. Ninja don't mutter. Samurai don't mutter. You need a poker face. You need to discombobulate. Discombobulate? Confuse them. Mushu jumped up. Distract them. You can't overpower them, so you have to outsmart them. Acting is part of warfare. Mushu introduced the concept of ping. Ping is your alter ego, Mushu explained. Midoriya is scared. Midoriya overthinks. Ping is cocky. Ping is crazy. When you fight, you need to be Ping. I can't be cocky, Izuku said. It's not me. It's acting, Mushu insisted. Look, if you look terrified, the villain feels powerful. If you look bored? If you look like you're laughing at them? They get angry. Angry people make mistakes. And when they make mistakes, I strike, Izuku finished. Exactly. Dishonor on them for losing their cool. They practiced insults. Hey, nice face, did you get it at the ugly store? Mushu suggested. That's really childish, Mushu, Izuku sighed. It works. Trust me. Psychological warfare. Izuku never quite mastered the insults, but he did master the silent stare. He learned to keep his face blank, his eyes intense. He learned to channel his fear into focus. Month 10, the day of reckoning. The morning of the UA entrance exam arrived with a crisp, cold breeze. Izuku stood at the entrance of Dagoba Municipal Beach Park. It was unrecognizable. The trash was gone. All of it. The golden sand stretched out, pristine and sparkling in the morning light. The ocean waves lapped gently at the shore, unobstructed by tires or sludge. Izuku stood in the center of the beach. He wasn't wearing his school uniform yet. He was shirtless, wearing loose training pants. His transformation was undeniable. He wasn't a hulking mass of muscle like All Might. He was built like a gymnast or a Bruce Lee film star. Every muscle was defined, compact, and functional. His back was a map of hard-earned strength. Scars from cuts and scrapes littered his hands and arms, badges of honor from the trash heap. He held his staff. It was a new one. Over the last month, Izuku had scavenged parts from the beach, high-grade aluminum alloys from aircraft parts, carbon fiber from racing bikes. With help from a frantic amount of YouTube tutorials and Mushu's ancient wisdom, which was mostly just yelling make it pointier, he had crafted a collapsible bow staff. It was gunmetal gray. It could telescope down to the size of a ruler and extend to 6 feet with a flick of the wrist. It was balanced perfectly. Well, Mushu said, standing on Izuku's shoulder. The dragon was wearing a tiny, custom-made headband that said Coach. Look at this place. Clean as a whistle. The feng shui is finally balanced. I feel the chi returning. We did it, Izuku said, his voice deeper, steadier than it had been 10 months ago. You did it, Mushu corrected. I just yelled a lot. Izuku looked at the staff in his hand. I still don't have a quirk, Mushu. Everyone at that exam is going to have powers. Let them have their powers, Mushu scoffed. You have something they don't. What? You have style, Mushu grinned. And you have me. And Cri-ki? Cri-ki chirped from Izuku's pocket. You ready to go show these amateurs what a real dragon warrior looks like? Izuku collapsed the staff and slipped it into his pocket. He picked up his Yui uniform jacket. As he pulled it on, he caught his reflection in the water. He didn't see the scared, quirkless Deku anymore. He saw a warrior. Let's get down to business, Izuku said, a sharp glint in his eye. Yui High School gates. The massive glass structure of Yui loomed over the students. Hundreds of hopefuls were walking through the gates, chatting excitedly about their quirks. I hope I can use my lasers. I'm gonna crush the robots with my giant hands. Izuku walked through the crowd. He moved differently now. He didn't shuffle. He glided. His steps were silent, a habit picked up from trying to sneak up on Mushu during training. He saw Bakugo ahead of him. Bakugo was walking with his usual hunch, hands in pockets, radiating aggression. Out of my way, extras! Bakugo snarled at a student who got too close. Izuku kept walking. He didn't call out. He just observed. Bakugo's right shoulder is tight. He's favoring his left leg slightly. Did he overtrain? Izuku stopped analyzing. No. Empty mind. As he walked, he was so focused that he didn't notice the uneven pavement stone. He tripped. Classic Izuku, he thought, bracing for impact. But he didn't fall. Before his face could hit the ground, his training kicked in. He twisted in midair, turning the fall into a roll. He planted one hand, vaulted, and landed softly on his feet in a crouch. Whoa! A girl with a bob cut and round cheeks was standing there, her hand outstretched as if she had been about to use her quirk on him. It was Ochako Uraraka. I was gonna catch you with my quirk, but you just did a ninja flip, she exclaimed, her eyes wide. Izuku stood up, dusting off his uniform. Oh. Thanks. I mean, thanks for trying to help. I just slipped. That was amazing. Are you a speed type? Or a reflex type? She asked, bubbling with energy. Mushu, hiding in Izuku's collar, whispered, she's cute. Talk to her. Say something cool. Tell her you slay dragons. Wait, no, don't say that. Izuku flushed, the old awkwardness resurfacing for a moment. I trained a lot. I'm Midoriya. I'm Uraraka. Good luck in there. She waved and ran off toward the entrance. Smooth, Mushu deadpanned. I trained a lot. You sounded like a textbook. Shut up, Mushu, Izuku whispered, smiling. He looked up at the main building. The golden UA letters shone in the sun. He reached into his pocket and touched the cold metal of his collapsible staff. I am not All Might, Izuku thought. I am not Kaken. He took a deep breath, centering himself. I am the dragon's disciple. He stepped forward into the hall. The written exam. The written exam was a breeze. Izuku had been studying hero laws and physics since he was 4. Mushu sat on his shoulder, invisible to the proctors thanks to his small size and stillness, occasionally reading over Izuku's shoulder and whispering unhelpful things like, the answer is C. It's always C, or who cares about the Sokovia Accords? Just burn them. Izuku ignored him and aced the paper. The practical exam orientation. Present mic was loud. Everybody say hey. Silence. Tough crowd. Izuku sat in the auditorium, his notebook out. He was sketching the robot designs present mic was displaying on the screen. 1 pointer, fast, weak armor. 2 pointer, slow, heavy armor. 3 pointer, balanced, machine guns. Excuse me. A tall boy with glasses and engines in his legs stood up. Tenya Ida, may I ask a question? There are 4 types of villains on the handout, but you only explained 3. If this is an error, it is highly shameful for UA. And you, Ida pointed a stiff finger directly at Izuku. You have been muttering this whole time. It is distracting. If you are here to treat this as a field trip, please leave. The whole auditorium turned to look at Izuku. The old Izuku would have shrunk into a ball and apologized profusely. Izuku looked at Ida. He felt Mushu bristle on his shoulder. Dishonor! Mushu hissed. He pointed a finger. Bite it off. Izuku placed a hand on his shoulder to calm the dragon. He stood up slowly. He didn't look scared. He looked calm. I apologize for the noise, Izuku said, his voice carrying clearly without shouting. I was analyzing the structural weaknesses of the robots based on the schematics. If we know their joints are vulnerable, we can disable them more efficiently than just using brute force. He looked Ida in the eye. I'm here to win. Just like you. He sat down. The room was silent for a second. Even Bakugo looked back, his eyes narrowed. Since when does the nerd talk back? Okay. Okay. Present Mike shouted, breaking the tension. Thank you, Examinees 7111. The 4th robot is a 0-pointer. It's just an obstacle. Avoid it. Battle Center B. The gates to the mock city were massive. Izuku stood in the crowd of examinees. He saw Uraraka nearby, looking nervous. He saw Ada stretching his engines. Izuku reached into his pocket and pulled out his metal cylinder. With a snick-snick sound, he extended it to its full 6-foot length. The students around him stared. A stick? Someone laughed. He's bringing a stick to a superpower fight? Does he have a weapon creation quirk? He looks kinda scrawny. Mushu climbed up to Izuku's ear. They're laughing, Izuku. You know what we do when people laugh? We prove them wrong, Izuku whispered. We make them cry, Mushu corrected. But sure, proving them wrong works too. And start. Present Mix's voice boomed from the tower. What are you waiting for? There are no countdowns in real battles. Go! 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 The other students hesitated for a fraction of a second, confused. Izuku didn't. The moment he heard start, he launched. He didn't run like a sprinter. He ran low, his staff trailing behind him like a tail. He burst past the stunned students, crossing the threshold first. First blood is ours! Mushi yelled. A one-pointer robot rolled out from an alleyway, its red eye glowing. Target acquired. It raised a mechanical arm to smash Izuku. The students behind him screamed. Look out! Izuku didn't slow down. He planted the tip of his staff into the pavement. He used his momentum to pole vault. He soared into the air, flying right over the robot's strike. As he reached the apex of his jump, directly above the robot's head, he spun. Gravity took over. He came down, driving the heel of his foot onto the robot's neck joint, the weakness he had analyzed earlier. Crunch! The metal caved in. Wires sparked. The head severed from the signal. Izuku landed on the other side, rolling to his feet. The robot exploded behind him. Izuku stood up, spun his staff, and rested it on his shoulder. 1, he counted. Mushu popped his head out. That was adequate. But you didn't stick the landing. 8 out of 10. Izuku grinned. Let's find some more. He took off running into the city, leaving the other students gaping in the dust. The dragon's disciple had arrived. The massive gates of Battle Center beyond open, revealing the sprawling urban mock-up within. To the average eye, it was a city. To the students of the UA entrance exam, it was a battlefield. To Izuku Midoriya, standing at the precipice with a collapsible alloy staff in his grip and a dragon in his pocket, it was a puzzle waiting to be solved. And start! President Mix's voice boomed from the observation tower, amplified to a volume that rattled the teeth of everyone in the vicinity. What's wrong? There are no countdowns in real fights. Run! Run! Die! I mean live! Go! While the other examinees hesitated, a collective second of confusion as their brains processed the lack of a traditional 3-2-1, Izuku was already a blur of motion. First step is the hardest, kid. Don't trip! Mushu shouted from his hiding spot inside Izuku's collar. I'm not gonna trip! Izuku hissed back, his legs pumping like pistons. He didn't run like the track stars in his middle school. He ran low to the ground, his center of gravity dropped, reducing wind resistance and making him a smaller target. 10 months of hauling tires through sand and dodging Mushu's surprise attacks had given him an explosive start that rivaled a low-level speed quirk. He breached the city limits before anyone else had taken a third step. Target acquired. A one-pointer, a wheeled drone with a single red optical sensor and lanky, flailing arms, careened around the corner of a mock convenience store. It locked onto Izuku, its servos whining. Target located. Terminate. It lunged, a clumsy, linear strike. Too slow. Mushu critiqued. Dishonor on its motherboard. Izuku didn't stop. He didn't even slow down. He read the robot's trajectory in a split second. Linear momentum. Top-heavy design. Exposed cervical cabling. Just as the robot's arm swung for his head, Izuku planted the tip of his staff into a crack in the pavement. Leverage. Using his forward momentum, he launched himself into the air, pole vaulting over the robotic arm. For a moment, he was weightless, soaring above the drone. He twisted his body mid-air, retracting the staff and snapping it back out to its full length in a fluid motion. Gravity took hold. As he descended behind the robot, he brought the staff down, not with brute strength, but with precision. The metal tip struck the exposed bundle of wires at the base of the robot's neck unit. Crackfizz. He hit the off switch. Or rather, he smashed the power regulator. The robot's eye went dark, and it collapsed into a heap of scrap metal, its momentum carrying it skidding into a wall. Izuku landed in a crouch, barely making a sound. 1 point, he whispered, his breath steady. Behind him, the thundering herd of other students finally caught up. They stopped dead, staring at the smoking wreck and the boy with the metal stick. Did he just one-shot a robot? A boy with rocks for hair gasped. He doesn't have a strength quirk? I didn't see any glowing. He just vaulted it. Keep moving! Mushu barked in Izuku's ear. Don't sign autographs yet. We got a quota to fill. Izuku took off down the main avenue, leaving the stunned students to scramble for their own targets. The battle had begun in earnest. The city echoed with the sounds of explosions, lasers, and shouting. Izuku moved through the chaos like water through a sieve. He encountered a two-pointer next, a scorpion-like machine with a heavy tail and reinforced plating. It was cornering a student who was shooting lasers from his navel but missing due to panic. Help! The laser boy shrieked as the tail came down. Izuku slid, literally slid like a baseball player, between the laser boy's legs. He thrust his staff upward, catching the descending tail. He couldn't stop the force, but he could redirect it. He angled the staff, letting the tail slide down the metal shaft, slamming into the concrete inches from the student's foot. Move! Izuku commanded, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had spent months being yelled at by a dragon. The laser boy scrambled away. The two-pointer turned its attention to Izuku. It raised a pincer. It's armored! Mushu warned. Don't try to break the shell, break the joints. I know! Izuku dodged a pincer snap, weaving to the left. He wasn't using the staff to hit the armor plates. That would just bend his weapon. He was hunting for the gaps. Knee joint. Hydraulic piston. Exposed. Izuku spun, building centrifugal force. He swept the staff low, hooking the curved end behind the robot's rear leg. He pulled hard while simultaneously kicking the knee joint from the side. Physics did the rest. The leg buckled inward. The heavy robot, unbalanced, tipped over with a metallic screech. Before it could right itself, Izuku jammed the end of his staff into the primary optical sensor, shattering the glass and the circuit board behind it. The robot shuddered and died. 3 points, Izuku muttered, wiping dust from his cheek. Nice sweep, Mushu noted. A little sloppy on the recovery, though. You left your left flank open. If that robot had a friend, you'd be a pancake. Noted, Izuku grunted, scanning the street. He wasn't fighting like the others. He saw Bakugo, on a monitor in his mind. He could imagine him, blasting through walls. He saw others using telekinesis or acid to melt the opposition. They were fighting force with force. Izuku was fighting with the environment. He lured a three-pointer, a massive, treaded tank with missile launchers, into a narrow alleyway. It's too big! Mushi yelled. It's gonna crush us. That's the point. Izuku yelled back. He sprinted down the alley, the massive treads of the three-pointer chewing up the asphalt behind him. The robot was wide. The alley was narrow. Izuku wallran, a technique that had cost him many bruises to learn, taking 3 steps up the vertical brick wall to grab a fire escape ladder. He swung up, flipping onto the metal platform just as the robot wedged itself between the two buildings. Screunch. The robot was stuck. Its treads spun uselessly, grinding against the brick. It tried to aim its missiles, but the narrow walls blocked the turret's rotation. Izuku looked down from the fire escape. Target immobilized, Izuku noted. He dropped from the fire escape, landing directly on top of the robot's turret. He found the maintenance hatch, ripped it open, thank you, grip strength training, and yanked the main wiring harness loose. The machine powered down. That counts as a kill, right? Izuku asked. If the judges have eyes, it does, Mushu said. Now let's go. I smell trouble in Sector 4. Observation room. In the darkened room filled with monitors, the staff of UA High watched the chaos unfold. This year's batch is spirited, Midnight purred, watching a student with vines for hair capture 3 robots at once. Indeed, Cementos nodded. There is a lot of raw power. But power isn't everything. All Might stood in the back, his skeletal form hidden by his oversized yellow suit. He was sweating. His eyes were glued to the screen showing Battle Center B. He was looking for young Midoriya. Please be safe, my boy. You don't have one for all. You shouldn't be here. Hey, Eraser, President Mike nudged the tired-looking man next to him. Check out screen B7. Who is that kid? Shota Aizawa, looking like he would rather be asleep in a sleeping bag, squinted at the screen. On the monitor, a green blur was currently using a piece of debris as a shield to deflect rubber bullets from a one-pointer, then throwing his staff like a javelin to disable a second robot from 50 feet away. Student 7111, Aizawa read from the tablet. Izuku Midoriya. He scrolled down to the quirk registration. Aizawa paused. He tapped the screen to refresh it, thinking it was a glitch. Quirk, none. The room went silent for a moment as the other teachers looked at the screen. None? Midnight leaned in. Is that a typo? Look at him move. That's a speed quirk if I ever saw one. No, Nizu, the principal, piped up from his high chair, sipping tea. Look closer. He isn't moving fast because of a mutation. He's moving efficiently. No wasted energy. His pathfinding is optimal. He anticipates the robot's targeting algorithms. He's fighting with a stick, Vlad King grunted. Against military-grade training bots. And winning, Aizawa muttered, his interest peaked for the first time that day. He has 28 combat points. Above average. But can he sustain it? Niza asked, his eyes gleaming. Physical stamina has a limit that quirks often bypass. Let's see what happens when the pressure rises. Niza's paw hovered over a large red button. Release the villain. Battle center be 10 minutes remaining. Izuku was panting. His lungs burned, a familiar fire that reminded him of the morning's hauling trash on the beach. He had 45 points. It should be enough. He leaned against a lamp post, checking his staff. The alloy was scratched, but it held true. Hydrate, Mushu ordered, handing him a small squeeze pouch of water from Izuku's belt. Don't gulp. Sip. Izuku took a sip. Thanks, coach. You're doing good, kid, Mushu said, peering out from the collar. But don't get cocky. The exam isn't over until the fat lady sings. Or until the buzzer sounds. I know. Izuku scanned the area. He saw Ochako Uraraka nearby. She looked exhausted. She was leaning over, looking like she was about to be sick. She had clearly overused her zero gravity. Tenya Ida was zooming past, his engine smoking, racking up points with robotic efficiency. Everyone is pushing their limits, Izuku observed. But without a quirk, my limit is just my body. Your body is a temple. Mushu slapped his cheek. A temple of pain. Now get back out, th. Rumble. The ground jumped. Izuku nearly lost his footing. A deep, reverberating boom echoed across the city. Dust clouds billowed from the north end of the mock city. What was that? Izuku asked, gripping his staff. Then he saw it. Rising above the skyscrapers like a titan from a nightmare was the zero-pointer. It was colossal. Its green chassis blocked out the sun. Its treads crushed entire buildings as it moved. It had no weapons, but it didn't need them. Its sheer mass was a weapon of mass destruction. Okay, Mushu squeaked, his voice jumping an octave. That's big. That's very big. That's dishonor on your whole neighborhood big. The other students froze. Then, panic set in. Run! It's the zero-pointer. There's no point in fighting it. Just go. The stampede began. Students fled away from the giant, pushing past each other in a desperate bid for safety. Izuku's instinct was to run too. His legs trembled. It's huge. It's impossible. I have a stick. That thing is a mountain. Izuku! Move your feet! Mushi yelled. Retreat is a valid strategy. Live to fight another day. Izuku turned to run. He took a step. Ow! A cry of pain cut through the roar of the collapsing buildings. Izuku stopped. He looked back. Through the dust, he saw her. Ochako Uraraka. She had tripped, or been pushed by the fleeing crowd. Her leg was trapped under a large slab of concrete debris. She was struggling to lift it, but she was exhausted, and the zero-pointer was looming closer. Its massive tread was descending, crushing everything in its path. It was 50 meters away. Then 40. She's stuck, Izuku whispered. Kid, no, Mushu warned, sensing the shift in Izuku's muscles. Do not do it. That thing is way out of our weight class. We are a gecko. That is a T-Rex. She saved me, Izuku said. At the gate. She was nice to me. Being nice doesn't stop you from being flat. But Izuku was already moving. He didn't run away. He ran toward the Titan. Oh, for the love of ancestors, protect us. Mushu screamed, diving deep into Izuku's pocket. If we survive this, you are doing double squats for a month. Izuku sprinted against the flow of the crowd. Ida, who was fleeing, saw him. Midoriya! What are you doing? There are no points for that one. It's suicide. Izuku didn't hear him. The world narrowed down to a tunnel. At the end of the tunnel was Uraraka, and above her, the descending foot of God. He reached her. He jammed his staff under the concrete slab. Uraraka! Can you move? It's stuck. She cried, tears in her eyes. My leg! Izuku hauled on the staff, using it as a lever. His muscles screamed. Veins popped in his neck. The concrete shifted an inch. I can't lift it enough. Izuku gritted his teeth. Mushu! Help! Mushu popped out. I weigh 3 pounds. What do you want me to do? Fire! The rebar! Heat it up. Mushu didn't argue. He scrambled onto the twisted metal rebar holding the concrete together. He took a deep breath, his chest glowing like a furnace, and unleashed a stream of concentrated flame. It wasn't a massive fire breath, but it was hot. The metal glowed cherry red. It softened. Izuku roared and pulled the staff down. The weakened metal snapped. The concrete shattered. Go! Izuku yelled, grabbing Uraraka's hand and pulling her free. But the robot! She pointed up. The 0-pointer was directly above them. Its shadow swallowed them whole. Even if they ran now, the shockwave of the tread hitting the ground would bury them. Izuku looked up. He saw the grinding gears. He saw the massive hydraulic pistons, and he saw something else, a lesson from month 2. The bigger they are, the harder they fall. But also, the more places there are to climb. Mushu, Izuku said, his voice eerily calm. Get the cricket ready. What? Uraraka, Izuku turned to the girl. Can you make me float? I think so, she stammered. But why? Just do it. And then run, she slapped his chest. Release. Izuku felt gravity loosen its grip. He was weightless. Mushu. Rocket. Mushu understood. He grabbed onto Izuku's collar, face backward, and unleashed a burst of fire. It wasn't enough to fly, but in zero gravity, it acted like a thruster. Izuku shot upward. He flew past the descending tread. He flew past the knee joint. Release it now! Izuku shouted down, hoping she could hear him. Uraraka, watching from the safety of an alleyway, pressed her fingers together. Release! Gravity returned instantly. Izuku's momentum carried him upward, but now he had weight. He crashed onto the metal plating of the 0-pointer's hip. He tumbled, nearly rolling off, but jammed his staff into a seam in the metal. We are on the robot. Why are we on the robot? Mushu screamed, clinging to Izuku's ear. We have to kill it! Izuku yelled over the wind. Or it crushes everyone. He looked up. The head of the robot was still 50 feet above him. The body was a landscape of moving gears and shifting plates. It's like the Emperor's palace. Mushu shouted. But moving! And trying to kill us. Run up the pillars. Izuku quoted their training. He sprinted. He ran along a rotating axle, balancing like a circus performer. He vaulted over a piston that would have smashed him into paste. He used his staff to hook onto cables and swing higher. He was a green flea on a metal giant. He reached the shoulder. The wind was fierce up here. Where's the weak spot? Izuku scanned. There. The intake. Mushu pointed a claw. On the back of the robot's neck, there was a massive ventilation grate glowing orange with heat. It was the cooling system for the main reactor. Izuku ran toward it. The robot sensed him. Small defensive drones popped out of the shoulder plating. Lasers. Mushu warned. Izuku ducked a beam of red light. He spun his staff, deflecting a second drone into a third. He reached the grate. It was bolted shut. It's locked. Izuku yelled. Step aside. Mushu ordered. Mushu jumped off Izuku's shoulder. He scrambled onto the bolts. Ancestors, guide my fire. Mushu unleashed everything he had. He wasn't a big dragon, but his fire was hot. He concentrated the flame on the hinges. The metal turned white, then liquid. Now Izuku. Strike. Izuku gripped his staff with both hands. He channeled every ounce of frustration, every moment of being called Deku, every drop of sweat from the beach into this one swing. Strike with all the force of a great typhoon. He slammed the staff into the melted hinges. Clang! The grate flew off, clattering down the side of the robot. Exposed beneath was the spinning fan of the cooling system and the glowing fuel lines. Crikey! Mushu yelled. From Izuku's pocket, the purple cricket hopped out. He was holding a small, round object. It was a firework, a leftover from the summer festival, modified by Izuku with gunpowder scavenged from the beach's trash. Don't ask. Crikey hopped to the edge of the intake, lit the fuse with a match he struck on his own leg, and kicked the firework into the fan. Fire in the hole! Mushu grabbed Izuku. Jump! Izuku didn't hesitate. He grabbed Mushu and Crikey and leaped off the shoulder of the Titan, diving into empty air. Behind him, the firework hit the fan. The explosion wasn't huge, but it didn't need to be. It shattered the fan blades. The shards of metal were sucked into the intake. They shredded the fuel lines. They sparked against the reactor core. Kaboom! A massive explosion erupted from the back of the zero-pointer's neck. Smoke billowed out. The giant robot froze. Its lights flickered and died. Then, slowly, majestically, it began to tip backward. Izuku was falling. The ground was rushing up fast. We didn't think about the landing. Mushu screamed, flapping his tiny arms as if that would help. I have an idea! Izuku yelled. He extended his staff. He aimed for the fabric awning of a shop window below. He hit the awning. It tore, slowing his fall. He hit a second awning. It ripped. He hit a clothesline. He hit a banner. He tumbled onto the street, rolling across the asphalt until he came to a stop at Uraraka's feet. He lay there, groaning. His uniform was torn. He was covered in soot and grease. His staff was bent. Silence descended on the battlefield. The zero-pointer crashed into the ground a block away, shaking the earth one last time. Time's up! Present Mick's voice blared. Izuku stared up at the sky. It was blue. It was beautiful. Did we win? Izuku wheezed. Mushu crawled out from under Izuku's arm. He was dizzy, stars circling his head. I think. Mushu burped a small smoke ring. I think we brought honor to the cow. Uraraka stared down at him, her hands covering her mouth. Ida was standing nearby, his glasses askew, mouth open. Ida whispered. He took down the zero-pointer. Without a quirk, Recovery Girl arrived moments later, shuffling through the stunned crowd. Make way, make way! Good heavens, what a mess! She looked at Izuku. Broken rib. Sprained ankle. Multiple contusions. And, is that a lizard? Dragon? Izuku and Mushu whispered in unison. She kissed Izuku on the forehead. The glow of healing warmth washed over him, replacing the pain with intense exhaustion. Here, she handed him a handful of gummies. Eat these. You were reckless, boy. But brave. Izuku chewed the gummies slowly. The adrenaline was fading, replaced by a sinking feeling in his gut. He looked at the scoreboard tower in the distance. Izuku Midoriya, 45 points. 45, he whispered. Is that enough? He looked at the other students. Some were boasting about 60, 70 points. I wasted time, Izuku thought, closing his eyes. I spent the last few minutes fighting a robot worth 0 points. He felt a tiny hand pat his cheek. Hey, Mushu whispered. You saved the girl. That's worth more than points. I hope so, Mushu. Izuku sighed as consciousness slipped away. I hope so. 1 week later, the Midoriya apartment was quiet. Izuku sat at the dinner table, staring at a fish. Eat up, honey, Inko said nervously. Brain food. I'm not hungry, Izuku mumbled. Mushu was currently swimming in a bowl of miso soup like it was a hot tub. This is the life. Win or lose, the soup is good. Izuku hadn't heard from Yue. Every day that passed felt like a confirmation of his failure. 45 points was low. The combat average was usually around 50 or 60. I should have focused on the 3-pointers, Izuku muttered. I should have ignored the 0-pointer. Stop it, Mushu splashed soup at him. You did the right thing. If you had left her, I would have burned your eyebrows off. But I want to be a hero, Mushu. I can't be a hero if I don't get into school. Ding dong, the doorbell rang. Inko jumped. I'll get it, she returned a moment later, holding a letter. It was thick. It had the Yui wax seal. Izuku, she whispered, handing it to him. Izuku took the envelope. His hands were shaking. He went to his room. Mushu followed, looking serious for once. Izuku sat at his desk. He used a letter opener to slice the seal. A metal disc fell out onto the desk. Bzzzt. A hologram projected into the air. I am here. All Might's face filled the room. All Might? Izuku gasped. Young Midoriya. The hologram boomed. You are looking at the newest faculty member of UA High. I apologize for the delay. There was much paperwork. Dealing with the school board is harder than fighting villains. Ha ha ha! Izuku watched, his heart pounding. You performed well in the written exam. But the practical, the practical. You scored 45 combat points. A respectable score, but perhaps not enough to guarantee a spot in Class 1A on its own. Izuku's head dropped. However, All Might's voice rose. A hero is not judged solely by the villains he defeats. A hero is judged by the lives he saves. This is a hero course. Did you think we would not reward heroic acts? The video cut away. It showed grainy footage from the exam. It showed Uraraka trapped. It showed the other students fleeing, and it showed Izuku running against the tide. You risked everything, All Might said, his voice soft now. You, a boy without a quirk, faced a titan to save a stranger. You showed more spirit than anyone else on that field. The video showed Uraraka standing in the teacher's office after the exam. Please! She was pleading with Present Mike. Can I give him some of my points? He saved me. He wouldn't have 0 if he hadn't stopped to help me. Izuku's eyes filled with tears. You didn't have 0, young Midoriya, All Might said, returning to the screen. But her sentiment moves us. In addition to your combat points, Yui awards rescue points. A scoreboard appeared. Izuku Midoriya, 45 combat points. Rescue points, 60. Total, 105. 105 points. All Might shouted. Top of the class. You passed with flying colors. All Might extended a hand toward the camera. Come, young Midoriya. This is your hero academia. The hologram faded. Izuku sat in silence. Tears streamed down his face, soaking his shirt. We did it, he choked out. Mushu stood on the desk, looking at the empty space where the hologram had been. He sniffled. He grabbed a tissue from the box and blew his nose loudly. That big blonde guy is loud, Mushu said, his voice thick with emotion. But he knows talent when he sees it. Mushu climbed up Izuku's arm and hugged his cheek. You're a hero, kid. A real dragon warrior. Izuku smiled through the tears. He looked at his fist. I'm going to UA. Yeah, you are, Mushu grinned. Now pack your bags. We got a school to conquer. And I hear the cafeteria serves excellent pork buns. Teacher's lounge, UA? Aizawa sat at his desk, staring at a file. The photo attached was of a skinny boy with green hair holding a metal staff. Name, Izuku Midoriya. Quirk, none. Notes. Highly advanced tactical analysis. Mastery of armed combat, bow staff. Exceptional agility. Shows signs of flow state. There was a sticky note attached to the file, written in Nisa's handwriting. Warning, seems to be accompanied by a small, unauthorized reptile. Investigation pending. Aizawa sighed and took a sip of his jelly pouch. A quirkless student in the hero course, he muttered. This is going to be illogical. And interesting. He tossed the file onto the stack for Class 1A. Welcome to hell, kid. Don't disappoint me. The uniform of UA High School was heavy. Not physically, the fabric was high quality. Breathable slate gray material that probably cost more than Izuku's entire wardrobe. But metaphorically, it carried the weight of thousands of aspiring heroes who had failed to wear it. It carried the legacy of All Might. And for Izuku Midoriya, it carried the very confused expectations of a small, red dragon currently stuffing himself into the inner pocket of the blazer. Ow! Mushu, watch the claws! Izuku hissed, standing in the entryway of his apartment, trying to button the jacket without looking like he was wrestling a ferret. I'm getting comfortable. It's tight in here. Mushu's muffled voice complained from the left side of Izuku's chest. You need to loosen the stitching. Maybe at a sunroof. A dragon needs to breathe. You're supposed to be a secret, Izuku whispered, checking his reflection in the mirror. He looked different. The uniform fit well, accentuating the lean, ropey muscle he had built over 10 months of hauling trash. His posture was straighter. The nervous tremble was still there, lurking in his hands, but his eyes were steady. I'm a guardian spirit, not a secret. Mushu popped his head out of the collar, adjusting his tiny whiskers. I am the secret weapon. The ace in the hole. The spice in the curry. Just, please don't set anything on fire today. It's the first day. Expulsion is a real thing here. Expulsion? Please. You got the top score. They'd be crazy to kick out the golden boy. Now, where's the cricket? We can't leave Shiaraki. Shiaraki chirped from the pencil case in Izuku's yellow backpack. Good. The gang's all here. Mushu patted Izuku's cheek with a claw. Now chin up. Shoulders back. Chest out. Let's go show these amateurs how the FA family, the Midoriya family, does business. Right, Izuku took a deep breath. I'm going. Have a good day, Izuku. Be careful. Inko called from the kitchen, looking teary-eyed as usual. I will, Mom. Yue High School Class 1A. The door to Class 1A was massive. Legitimately huge. It was clearly designed to accommodate students with gigantification quirks or mutations, but to Izuku, it felt like the gate to a fortress. He stood before it, his hand hovering over the handle. This is it. The hero course. Open it, Mushu whispered. It's a door, not a puzzle. Push. I know, Izuku muttered. I'm just preparing. You're stalling. You're afraid the scary blonde boy is in there. Kakin is definitely in there. So? You beat a giant robot. He beats up vending machines. You win. Open the door. Izuku sighed and slid the door open. The classroom was already chaotic. Remove your foot from the desk immediately. Tenya Ida was chopping the air with his hand, lecturing Katsuki Bakugo. Ha! Bakugo sneered, his feet resting comfortably on the pristine wood. Who are you to tell me what to do, Four Eyes? I am Tenya Ida from Semi-Private Academy. Sama? So you're a damn elite? I'll have fun crushing you. Izuku froze. Oh no. They're already fighting. Ida turned, sensing the new arrival. His eyes widened behind his glasses. You! The entire class turned to look at Izuku. Bakugo's eyes narrowed into slits. It's you! Ida marched over, his movements stiff and robotic. The student who discerned the true nature of the exam. I misjudged you completely. I hate to admit it, but you are superior to me. No, I didn't discern anything. Izuku waved his hands frantically. I just acted. Midoriya! A cheerful voice cut through the tension. Ochako Uraraka appeared behind him, beaming. You made it! I was so worried about your injuries. Recovery girl healed you, right? You Uraraka-san? Izuku blushed, rubbing the back of his neck. Yeah, I'm fine. Thanks to you? Thanks to me? You saved my life. She pumped her fists. That was so cool. How you ran up the robot like whoosh and then bam, tch. Bakugo scoffed loudly from his desk. Deku. The nickname hung in the air like a bad smell. Deku? Uraraka tilted her head. Is that your name? I thought it was Midoriya. It's an insult, Izuku explained quietly. It means useless or wooden doll. Oh, Uraraka frowned. But it sounds like Dikairu, like you can do it. I kinda like it. Izuku felt his face heat up. Mushu, vibrating in his pocket, whispered loud enough for only Izuku to hear, she likes it. Keep the name. Brand recognition. Marketability. I guess Deku is fine then. Izuku stammered. If you're here to make friends, pack up and leave. The voice was dry, tired, and came from the floor. Izuku looked down. Lying in a yellow sleeping bag like a metamorphic caterpillar was a man with messy black hair and bloodshot eyes. He was sipping a jelly pouch. It took you 8 seconds to quiet down, the man said, unzipping the bag and standing up. He looked disheveled, dressed in black fatigues and a capture scarf. Time is limited. You kids aren't rational enough. He reached into his sleeping bag and pulled out a stack of blue gym uniforms. I'm your homeroom teacher, Shota Aizawa. Put these on and head to the grounds. We're doing a quirk apprehension test. A test? The class echoed. What about the entrance ceremony? The orientation? Uraraka asked. If you want to be heroes, you don't have time for such leisurely events, Aizawa said, turning his back. Yui is known for its freestyle education. That applies to us teachers as well. He glanced over his shoulder, his dark eyes locking onto Izuku for a fraction of a second. Don't keep me waiting. The changing rooms. The boys' locker room was a flurry of activity as the students changed into their gym kits. Man, that teacher seems intense, a boy with spiky red hair, Eijiro Kurishima, said as he pulled on his pants. I like it. Very manly. He looks like he hasn't slept in a decade, noted Denki Kaminari, a boy with a black lightning bolt in his hair. Izuku went to a corner to change, trying to keep Mushu hidden. He carefully transferred the dragon from his blazer to the pocket of his gym jacket, and put Ciaraiki in the other pocket. Hey, Midoriya, right? Kirishima walked over. I saw you at the exam. You're the guy with the stick. That was crazy. Thanks, Izuku smiled shyly, pulling off his shirt. The chatter in the room died down slightly. When Izuku removed his shirt, the scars were visible. His arms and back were a map of small, white lines, cuts from rusted metal, scrapes from jagged plastic, burns from friction. They weren't ugly, but they told a story of hard labor. His muscles were compact and dense, like twisted steel cables. Whoa, Kirishima whistled. Dude, you look like you've been through a war. Those are some manly scars. I trained at a beach, Izuku explained, pulling his gym shirt on quickly. There was a lot of sharp trash. Bakugo, who was slamming his locker shut, paused. He stared at Izuku's back. He remembered the scrawny, weak Deku from a year ago. The Deku who couldn't do a pull-up. When did he get that body? Bakugo thought, a surge of irritation spiking in his chest. He's been hiding it. He's been laughing at me. Don't think you're special just because you got lucky with a robot, Deku, Bakugo growled as he walked past, shoving his shoulder into Izuku's. I don't think I'm special, Kaken, Izuku said, his voice low. He didn't flinch this time. I just worked hard. Hard work doesn't beat power, Bakugo spat. I'll show you today. Mushu poked his head out of the gym jacket as they walked to the field. That kid has anger issues. Serious imbalance of chi. We should put a lizard in his shoe. No lizards, Mushu, Izuku whispered. We just have to pass the P grounds. The class gathered on the dirt field. The sun was high, and the air was crisp. Aizawa stood before them, holding a softball. Bakugo, Aizawa called out. You finished first in the entrance exam. What was your farthest softball throw in middle school? 67 meters, Bakugo grunted. Try it with your quirk, Aizawa tossed him the ball. Anything goes as long as you stay in the circle. Bakugo stepped into the circle. He grinned, a feral expression. He began to stretch his arms. Die. He muttered. Die. Izuku whispered. Die fire! Bakugo threw the ball, accompanied by a massive explosion from his palm. The blast propelled the ball like a cannon shot. It soared into the sky, leaving a trail of smoke. Beep. Aizawa held up his device. 705.2 meters. Whoa! The class erupted. 700 meters? That's insane. We can use our quirks freely? This is gonna be fun. So cool. Fun? Aizawa's voice dropped, instantly silencing the class. You have 3 years to become heroes. You think it's going to be fun and games? He looked at them with cold, dead eyes. Right. Let's make this interesting. The student who ranks last in total points will be judged to have 0 potential, and will be instantly expelled. Huh? Expelled? Uraraka cried. It's the first day. That's too unreasonable. Natural disasters, massive accidents, villain attacks, calamities are unreasonable, Aizawa countered. Yui is here to train you to handle the unreasonable. If you wanted to hang out at McDonald's after school, you're in the wrong place. He brushed his hair back. Welcome to the hero course. Expelled? Mushu hissed from Izuku's pocket. Did he say expelled? Oh no, no, no! I did not spend 10 months dragging you but through a garbage dump to get kicked out on day 1. Izuku! We need a plan. I know, Izuku whispered, his fists clenching. I have to do this without a quirk. I have to beat at least one person. He looked around. Everyone here had amazing powers. Engines. Gravity. Lasers. Creation. Can I really keep up? Hey, Mushu's voice was serious. Remember the beach. Remember the arrow. You didn't climb that pile with magic. You climbed it with guts. And leverage. Izuku took a breath. Right. Test 1, 50-meter dash. Ida was up first against a girl named Ajui Tsuyu. Ida, 3.04 seconds. Like a motorcycle, Mushu noted. Impressive machinery. Then it was Izuku's turn. He was up against Bakugo. Readied. The robot camera droned. Bakugo blasted off at the start, using explosions to propel himself. Izuku didn't have explosions. But he had the start. He dropped low, mimicking the sprinter stance Mushu had drilled into him. Go. Bakugo flew. Izuku ran. Izuku's form was perfect. Every ounce of energy went into forward motion. His breathing was rhythmic, a technique borrowed from Qigong to maximize oxygen flow. Bakugo crossed the line, 4.13 seconds. Izuku crossed, 5.80 seconds. 5.80. The robot announced. It wasn't superhuman. But for a quirkless high schooler? It was Olympic athlete level. Not bad, Mushu whispered. You beat your personal best. Bakugo glared at him. You're fast for a bug, Deku. Test 2, grip strength. Mizo Shoji, 540 kilograms. That guy is an octopus, Mushu gasped. He has too many hands. It's cheating. Izuku took the device. He squeezed. He didn't just squeeze with his fingers. He engaged his forearm, his shoulder, his lat. He visualized crushing a pipe. 56 kilograms. Average is around 30 for your age, Mushu shrugged. We take those. Test 3, standing long jump. Aoyama used his naval laser to fly across the sandbox. Bakugo exploded across. Izuku stood at the line. Use the wind, Mushu advised. Be the leaf. I am not a leaf, Izuku muttered. He crouched. He exploded upward. It wasn't flight, but it was a vertical leap that defied expectations. He tucked his knees to his chest, extending his airtime, and kicked out at the last second to maximize distance. He cleared the sandbox. Good form, Aizawa noted, marking his clipboard. But lacking raw power. Test 4, repeated side steps. This was it. The endurance test. Mineta, the great boy, was bouncing back and forth using his sticky balls. Izuku stepped onto the lines. Flow like water, Mushu whispered. FA family style, drifting pedal. Izuku moved. He didn't just step side to side. He flowed. His movements were circular, transferring momentum from one leg to the other without stopping. It looked like he was dancing, a high-speed Tai Chi routine. Whoosh. 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 He was a blur of green motion. He wasn't relying on muscle bursts. He was relying on conservation of momentum. He looks like he's floating, Uraraka commented. No, Ojiro, the tail boy observed, impressed. That's pure martial arts footwork. His center of gravity isn't shifting at all. Izuku finished with a high score, panting slightly but not winded. Test 5, the ball throw. This was the hurdle. Uraraka stepped up and threw the ball. It floated. And floated. And floated. Infinity, the machine read. Infinity? The class gasped. Okay, Mushu gulped. That's gonna be hard to beat. Unless we throw the ball into orbit, we might be in trouble. Midoriya, Aizawa called. Izuku walked to the circle. He held the ball. It felt light. If I just throw it, Izuku thought, I'll get maybe 40 or 50 meters. That's not enough. I need leverage. Izuku, Mushu peeked out. The wind. It's blowing east-southeast at approximately 15 knots. How do you know that? Shiaraki has a tiny flag, Mushu pointed. The cricket was indeed holding a scrap of paper that was fluttering. Okay, Izuku nodded. I can use that. He stepped into the circle. He didn't take a pitcher's stance. He took a discus thrower's stance. Or rather, A staff wielder's stance. He gripped the ball loosely in his fingers. I need spin, Izuku muttered. Magnus effect. If I spin it backspin against the wind, it generates lift. He began to wind up. He spun his body, using his core, his legs, building momentum like a coiled spring. 1 rotation, 2 rotations. He channeled the power from his toes up through his hips. I am the dragon. He prepared to release, pouring everything into the snap of his wrist. Suddenly his body locked up. The momentum vanished. The ball dropped from his limp fingers and rolled a pathetic 2 meters. What? Izuku gasped. He felt weak. He looked up. Aizawa was staring at him. His hair was floating, defying gravity. His eyes glowed an eerie red. The capture scarf was floating around him like snakes. I erased your quirk, Aizawa said flatly. Eh? Izuku blinked. The entrance exam was irrational enough. Aizawa walked closer, his voice dripping with disdain. They let a kid like you in. I saw the footage. You destroyed the 0-pointer, but you did it by destroying yourself, or risking it. And here, you were about to throw your arm out again. Aizawa stopped a few feet from Izuku. I saw no spark. No energy buildup. Just physical exertion. Aizawa narrowed his eyes. Tell me, Midoriya. Do you even have a quirk to erase? The class went silent. He doesn't have a quirk? Someone whispered. Then what was the robot thing? Izuku stood there, the ball at his feet. No, Izuku said, his voice trembling but clear. I don't have a quirk. Then you are a liability, Aizawa stated coldly. You are just a civilian playing hero. What can you do in a crisis? You can't save anyone if you're just a man with a stick. All Might saved over 1,000 people during his debut. You'll just get in the way. Aizawa's scarf lashed out. It was fast, faster than the eye could track. It wrapped around Izuku's waist and arm, pulling him forward. You have 0 potential, Aizawa hissed, pulling Izuku closer until they were face to face. Pack your bags. Mushu was vibrating with rage. Bite him. Izuku. Bite his nose. But Izuku didn't bite. And he didn't panic. Time seemed to slow down. Izuku looked at the scarf. It was a weapon. A binding cloth. It relied on tension and friction. It's a flexible weapon. Like a whip. Or a chain. Mushu's training kicked in. When caught by a soft weapon, do not pull away. Move into the bind to create slack. Izuku stepped forward, toward Aizawa. This surprised the teacher. The tension in the scarf vanished for a split second. Izuku raised his free hand, his right hand. He didn't make a fist. He held his hand flat, fingers splayed. The fan defense. He rotated his wrist, catching the loop of the scarf that was around his captured arm. With a fluid, circular motion, he twisted his body and redirected the scarf. He wasn't fighting Aizawa's strength. He was guiding the cloth. Slip. In one smooth motion, Izuku ducked under the loosened coil, spun on his heel, and effectively unwrapped himself. He didn't stop there. He used the momentum of his spin to gently palm Aizawa's elbow, a pressure point redirect, pushing the teacher's arm wide. Aizawa stumbled. Just a half step. But for a pro hero of his caliber, stumbling because of a student was unheard of. Izuku stood free, panting slightly. The class stared. Mouths were agape. Did he just... Kirishima whispered. Did he just juke the teacher? Aizawa regained his balance instantly, his eyes widening. His hair fell back down as he blinked, deactivating his quirk. He looked at his empty scarf. Then he looked at Izuku. I can't save people with power, Izuku said, looking Aizawa in the eye. He bent down and picked up the ball. So I have to save them with skill. I have to be smarter. Faster. And... Izuku smiled, a small, defiant curve of his lips. I have to be prepared. He walked back to the circle. I'm not done with my turn, sensei. Aizawa stood there, his expression unreadable. For a moment, the corners of his mouth twitched. Rational, Aizawa muttered. Hurry up and throw. Izuku took his stance again. Okay, Mushu, Izuku thought. Wind is still east-southeast? You bet, Mushu whispered, impressed. Now send it flying. Izuku spun. This time, he didn't hesitate. He felt the air currents. He felt the weight of the ball. spin, torque, snap. He released the ball at a high angle. It wasn't a cannon shot like Bakugo's. It didn't break the sound barrier. But it flew. It caught the updraft perfectly. It sailed, spinning rapidly, cutting through the air with aerodynamic perfection. It landed. It rolled. Beep. Aizawa held up the device. 112 meters. It wasn't 700. It wasn't infinity. It was barely a fraction of the power types. But for a quirkless human? It was extraordinary. Izuku clenched his fist. I can work with that. 112 meters? Bakugo's voice was a low growl. Without a quirk? Suddenly Bakugo exploded. DKU. He launched himself at Izuku, palms crackling. What kind of trick is this? You had a quirk all along? You were hiding your strength? Tell me the truth, you damn nerd. Izuku flinched, raising his arms in a guard. Kaken, no! It's just physics. I'll show you physics. Before Bakugo could reach him, the capture scarf lashed out again. This time, it wrapped around Bakugo tight, binding his arms and stifling his explosions. And then GH. What is this cloth? Bakugo struggled. It's stiff. It's a capture weapon made of carbon fiber and a special metal alloy, Aizawa drawled, holding the other end. Stand down. He pulled Bakugo back. Don't make me use my quirk so much. I have dry eye. Aizawa released Bakugo, who fell back, fuming. He glared at Izuku with a mixture of hatred and confusion. Izuku hadn't fought back. He hadn't used a secret power. He had just thrown a ball really well, and that pissed Bakugo off more than anything. The results. The sun was setting by the time the test concluded. The class gathered around the holographic display Aizawa projected. Total scores, Aizawa announced. As I said, the person in last place will be expelled. Izuku swallowed hard. He felt Mushu tense up in his pocket. I did okay on the dash. Good on the jumps. Okay on the grip. But the ball throw. 112 is low compared to everyone else. He looked at the board. 1. Momo Yaoyorozu. 2. Shoto Todoroki. 3. Katsuki Bakugo. 15. Izuku Midoriya. 20. Minoru Mineta. Izuku blinked. 15th? He wasn't last. He wasn't even in the bottom 3. His consistent, high-level athletic performance across all tests had outweighed the specialized scores of students who excelled in one area but failed in others, like Oyama, who had great jump/throw but terrible endurance, or Hagakure who had, well, nobody saw what she did. And by the way, Aizawa said, dismissing the hologram, the expulsion was a logical ruse. Huh? The class screamed. It was a deception to draw out your maximum potential. I knew it. Yaoyorozu clapped her hands. It was obviously a pedagogical technique. Man, that scared me. Kaminari slumped. It wasn't a lie, Aizawa muttered to himself as he walked away. I was fully prepared to send someone home. But, he glanced back at the green-haired boy who was currently high-fiving the gravity girl. He has 0 power. But he neutralized me for a second. He reads the battlefield like a veteran. Midoriya, let's see how long you survive. Leaving school. We did it! Mushu cheered, finally popping his head out as Izuku walked out of the school gates. We're in. We're legit. High five. He held up a tiny claw. Izuku tapped it with his finger. 15th place. Izuku smiled, feeling the exhaustion seep into his bones. It's not first. But it's a start. Hey! Deku! Izuku froze. He turned around. Uraraka was running toward him, Ida trailing behind her. Wait up. Let's walk to the station together. Uraraka beamed. You performed admirably, Midoriya-kun. Ida adjusted his glasses. Although your lack of a quirk is perplexing, your physical discipline is commendable. I must ask about your training regimen. Oh, sure. Izuku smiled. As he walked off with his new friends, he heard a familiar explosion in the distance. But he didn't turn back to look for Bakugo. A girl worth fighting for. Mushu hummed a tune from inside the jacket. Mushu, shh! Izuku hissed, blushing as he looked at Uraraka. What? Mushu whispered. I was singing about the school. UA. A school worth fighting for. Get your mind out of the gutter, soldier. Izuku laughed. For the first time, the path ahead didn't look lonely. It looked difficult, sure. But he had a dragon, a cricket, and now, friends, he was a boy worth saving. And he was going to be a hero worth watching.